On March 11, 2011, at precisely 2:46 p.m. local time, the world as Japan knew it came to a halt. A deep guttural rumble erupted from the Pacific Ocean, signaling the start of one of the most catastrophic natural disasters in modern history. A 9.0 magnitude undersea earthquake, born in the Japan Trench, unleashed a tsunami that would reshape lives, landscapes, and global perspectives on nature's power. This is the story of that fateful day, the chaos, the loss, the courage, and the enduring lessons that continue to echo more than a decade later. The earthquake, a nation shaken. The earthquake struck 72 kilometers off the coast of Japan's Tōhoku region, where the Pacific plate plunges beneath the North American plate in a subduction zone notorious for its volatility. Registering 9.0 on the Richter scale, it was Japan's most powerful recorded earthquake and the fourth strongest globally since modern seismography began in 1900. To put this into perspective, the energy released was equivalent to 600 million times the force of the Hiroshima atomic bomb. The shaking lasted an excruciating 6 minutes, an eternity in earthquake terms. In Tokyo, over 370 kilometers from the epicenter, skyscrapers swayed like reeds in a storm, their earthquake-resistant designs tested to the limit. Bullet trains, symbols of Japan's technological prowess, screeched to a halt as automated safety systems kicked in. Power lines sparked and fell. Ceilings collapsed in schools and offices. In the Tōhoku region, closer to the epicenter, entire buildings crumbled, roads buckled, and landslides buried rural communities. For those who lived through it, the earthquake was a visceral reminder of Japan's precarious place on the Pacific Ring of Fire, where 80% of the world's earthquakes occur. Japan's rigorous building codes and preparedness drills, honed over decades, saved countless lives. But even the most prepared nation could not have anticipated what came next. The tsunami. A wall of water. As people stumbled out of shaking buildings trying to make sense of the chaos, a far greater terror was gathering strength beneath the ocean. The earthquake had displaced massive sections of the seabed, sending a surge of water racing toward Japan's northeastern coast at speeds exceeding 700 kilometers per hour, the pace of a commercial jet. Within 15 minutes, tsunami warnings blared across coastal communities. Japan's advanced warning system, one of the best in the world, gave residents precious minutes to flee. But for many, it wasn't enough. The first waves struck with unimaginable force, some towering over 40 meters, higher than a 12-story building. In places like Miyako, a 10-meter seawall, thought to be impregnable, was effortlessly overtopped. In Rikuzen Takata, a single wave obliterated 70% of the town, leaving behind a desolate expanse of mud and debris. Minami Sanriku, a fishing community of 17,000, lost nearly half its population in minutes. The tsunami's power was indiscriminate. It swept away homes, schools, hospitals, and factories. Cars, trains, and even ships were tossed like toys. In Sendai, floodwaters inundated the airport, stranding planes on a submerged runway. In Kisunuma, breached oil tanks fueled fires that burned atop the water, creating apocalyptic scenes of flame and flood. The water surged up to 10 kilometers inland in some areas, erasing entire communities and leaving behind a trail of destruction that defied comprehension. Survivors' accounts paint a haunting picture. A mother in Ishinomaki clung to a tree as the icy water tore her child from her arms. A fisherman in Ofunato watched his entire fleet vanish into the sea. In some towns, the elderly, unable to flee to higher ground, were disproportionately lost, leaving communities without their wisdom and history. Fukushima, a nuclear nightmare. As the tsunami ravaged the coast, it set in motion a secondary disaster that would capture the world's attention: the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear crisis. The plant, located on the Tōhoku coast, was designed to withstand earthquakes but was woefully unprepared for the tsunami's scale. Waves as high as 14 meters breached the plant's 5.7-meter seawall, flooding critical backup generators housed in low-lying basements, a catastrophic design flaw. Without power, the cooling systems for the plant's nuclear reactors failed. Over the next few days, 3 of the 6 reactors suffered meltdowns as fuel rods overheated, releasing radioactive material. Hydrogen gas buildup triggered explosions that tore through reactor buildings, spewing radioactive particles into the air, soil, and sea. It was the worst nuclear disaster since Chernobyl in 1986. The response was chaotic. Over 150,000 people within a 20-kilometer radius were evacuated, many with only the clothes on their backs. Farmers abandoned livestock, and fishing communities lost their livelihoods as radiation contaminated the Pacific Ocean. To this day, parts of Fukushima remain restricted, with difficult-to-return zones where radiation levels are still unsafe. The cleanup effort, estimated to cost over $200 billion, is expected to take decades, with challenges like safely removing melted nuclear fuel still unresolved. The Fukushima disaster sparked global debates about nuclear energy safety. In Japan, it eroded public trust in institutions, as investigations revealed regulatory failures and TEPCO's, Tokyo Electric Power Company, inadequate preparedness. Germany accelerated its phase-out of nuclear power, while other nations paused to reassess their energy policies. Fukushima became a stark reminder that even advanced technology is no match for nature's unpredictability, the human toll, loss, and resilience. The numbers tell a story of staggering loss. The disaster claimed nearly 20,000 lives, with thousands more injured and over 2,500 still unaccounted for. Entire families were wiped out, leaving survivors to grapple with grief and guilt. Over 450,000 people were displaced, many living in cramped shelters like school gymnasiums or temporary housing units for years. Coastal towns, once vibrant with fishing traditions and tight-knit communities, were reduced to ghostly landscapes. Yet amid the devastation, Japan's spirit of resilience shone through. First responders braved aftershocks and radiation risks to search for survivors. In Minami Sanriku, a young municipal worker named Miki Endo stayed at her post, broadcasting tsunami warnings until the waves engulfed her office. Her sacrifice saved countless lives. In Ishinomaki, a school teacher led 400 students to safety on a hilltop, shielding them from the flood. Communities rallied with remarkable unity. In the freezing March weather, strangers shared blankets, food, and stories of survival. Fishermen turned their boats into rescue vessels, navigating debris-filled waters to save neighbors. Volunteers from across Japan, and later the world, poured into the region, distributing supplies and clearing rubble. Japan's self-defense forces mounted one of the largest rescue operations in history, saving over 19,000 people in the weeks that followed. The international response was equally inspiring. Over 20 countries sent rescue teams. From the United States to South Korea to New Zealand, aid organizations delivered food, medical supplies, and temporary shelters. Private citizens worldwide donated billions, moved by images of Japan's suffering. It was a moment of global solidarity, transcending borders and politics, reminding us of our shared humanity. Rebuilding and remembering. Rebuilding after such a catastrophe was a monumental task. Japan invested heavily in infrastructure, raising sea walls to heights of 12 meters or more and relocating entire towns to higher ground. Advanced tsunami warning systems were upgraded, incorporating real-time data from ocean buoys and satellites. Earthquake-resistant building codes became even stricter, and disaster drills became a cultural cornerstone, especially in schools. But recovery went beyond bricks and mortar. The psychological scars ran deep. Survivors struggled with survivor's guilt, PTSD, and the loss of community identity. In Fukushima, evacuees faced stigma, with some labeled as nuclear refugees. The government launched mental health programs, but for many, healing came through community rituals, memorials, storytelling, and festivals that honored the lost. Every year on March 11th at 2:46 p.m., Japan pauses for a moment of silence. Ceremonies across the country read the names of the deceased, ensuring their stories endure. In coastal towns, lanterns are floated on rivers, and rebuilt shrines stand as symbols of hope. These rituals are not just about mourning, but about affirming life's continuity. Lessons for a changing world. The 2011 Tōhoku disaster offers profound lessons for a world grappling with climate change, rising sea levels, and increasingly frequent natural disasters. It exposed the limits of human engineering. Seawalls, nuclear plants, and urban planning can only do so much against nature's fury. It underscored the need for adaptive, resilient infrastructure and transparent governance to rebuild trust after crises. The Fukushima meltdown, in particular, remains a cautionary tale about balancing technological ambition with environmental risks. As countries invest in clean energy to combat climate change, the disaster highlighted the importance of rigorous safety standards and worst-case scenario planning. Perhaps the most enduring lesson is the power of human connection. In Japan's darkest hour, acts of courage, sacrifice, and kindness illuminated the path forward. From the fisherman who became a rescuer to the global outpouring of support, the disaster showed that resilience is not just about surviving, it's about rebuilding together, a legacy of light. More than a decade later, the scars of March 11, 2011 remain. In Tōhoku, rebuilt towns stand alongside empty lots where communities once thrived. In Fukushima, the slow cleanup continues, a reminder of the disaster's long shadow. Yet Japan's recovery is a testament to its people's strength and the world's capacity for empathy. The 2011 Tōhoku earthquake and tsunami were not just a Japanese tragedy, they were a global wake-up call. They reminded us of nature's unpredictability, the fragility of life, and the importance of preparedness. But above all, they showed that even in our darkest moments, humanity can find light through courage, compassion, and the will to rebuild. Thank you for joining us in remembering this pivotal moment in history. If this story moved you, please like, subscribe, and share to keep the lessons of March 11, 2011 alive. Because history isn't just about what happened, it's about what we learn, what we remember, and how we choose to move forward together.